Friday night live. Before I begin, let me put something in the chat section. I want to add something in the chat. Can I add something in the chat section? Let's go to the chats here. Should be where I can see chats here somewhere. Wait for people to come into the room. I'm trying to find a way to let people come into the room. How do I do these chats? Go here. Let's share this out. Get people into the room. Sorry, I'm just sharing this video out at the moment. Bear with me. Share it there, and let's just share this as well on Twitter. Get my Twitter. I've shared it. Okay, let's give it a minute, and then we'll get started. Let me just do this. Add this here. Can't do that there. Cancel. Let's go back. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to BWTM Sports Gaming. Glad you could join me. So let's talk about new world order in boxing. We certainly have had many changes in boxing, and the changes that I've noticed in boxing today are changes in boxing that were predicted. I said to you that boxing will become like WWE, staged fights, old fighters coming back and fighting. I said YouTubers would be involved in live broadcasts. We've got that. I said there'd be a boxing league. We now have a boxing league, which is the Grand Prix at the moment. But we'll have a boxing league. The World Super Series does not count because that was around already. Please do let me know if you're in. Appreciate if you let me know and just say hi and where you're watching it from. I really appreciate that. Let's see, I've got top here. What's this button here? Be the first video by sending this one. Okay, it's here. So yeah, the World Series of Boxing, but I predicted even when the World Series of Boxing on, we'd have a league. I predicted we would have basically boxing would become like a circus and a WWE act, and we've had that. And I think the thing that solidified it for me back then was when Hearn, hello Leif, great to see you in the house. Let me see if I get you there, right. When I saw Hearn and Warren, I said if ever Warren and Hearn came together, that would be like SmackDown versus Raw, and there'd only be one winner, and that would be Frank Warren and his stable. I remember all the time before, people used to insult me and say, Eddie Hearn's this, Eddie Hearn's that, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, Hearn is the accountant, Warren's the matchmaker. When you talk about substance, you go to Warren. When you talk about the history of boxing, when you talk about matchmaking, when you talk about Warren's the guy. If you want to talk about a person who's going to break a fight down, you talk to Frank Warren. If you want to talk about promotion of fighters, all show but no real substance, but you go to the other side. And that's what it is. And the result, the manifestation of that is a 5-0 whooping. But that's not what this conversation is about. This conversation tonight is about the New World Order. One of the rules, or the unspoken rules, of this New World Order, as far as I can see it, is that if you're thinking about being a legacy fighter, forget it. If you're thinking about a guy, like, if you want to say, I won 4 different world titles at 3 different weights, and I was the first fighter to do this, and it don't matter if you're coming back. It don't matter. Nobody cares about that. People care about what have you done for me lately. And the younger viewers, the less knowledgeable, and there's a lot more of the less knowledgeable people in boxing now that are taking a front seat, and the knowledgeable people are taking a back seat. Not because they want to, but because that's the way it is. So if you're a world champion, a former world champion that's got any sort of like clout about you, former world heavyweight champion, youngest heavyweight champion of the world, um, eight weight world champion, uh, Olympic gold medalist, world. You've won the Olympic gold. You could have won the Olympic gold 10 times. It doesn't matter in this particular new world order, because in this new world order, your legacy means nothing, because your legacy, it's your legacy versus being well remunerated, or in other words, being well compensated or being paid well. Being paid well versus entering the ring not in a fit state or a well state or a position to look after oneself. That doesn't matter. You get paid, your name becomes your brand, and just like you become like disposable meat. You come in, we use you, you go. We'll use your name and your achievements to get you book you fights, but we really don't give a crap about your legacy. We just care about bums and seats and taking your name and your scalp for what you are at that particular time to sell on a pay-per-view. That's what it is. That's what it seems like to me. And I hope you can hear me, by the way. That's what it seems like to me now. Because this is where we have, and when you have those sort of standards, hello, good evening. And when you have those sort of standards, there are no standards. So why are people surprised if Jake Paul fights Mike Tyson? And I was watching this, reading this day on Twitter. The people are so daft. They're like, Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson. I'm like, are you idiots or what? Are you really that stupid? You cannot even watch boxing to understand that Mike had to pull his punches. And the reason why Mike had to pull his punches, that was in the contract, that if you knock Jake Paul out, you lose money. You will not get paid. So this is what it means about legacy. Nobody in this era gives a crap about your legacy. They don't. Play the role. Play the script is for you to come in, get beat, use your name and everything you've achieved to diminish your legacy while building somebody else's career or scripted career. So you have the real career versus a scripted career. The scripted career means that you cannot get knocked out in a fight. If you get knocked out, if you the fighter that's scripted gets knocked out, then the opponent doesn't get paid. And particularly in a position where a fighter is broke or it's life-changing money, they're not going to do anything to mess up the bag. And in particular, they're not going to get anything messed up the bag, particularly for these boxing fans. Boxing fans are fickle. They are fickle. Today, you're the best thing since sliced bread. The next day you get knocked out in a fight, you should retire. You come back, you become world champion. Oh, he's unbeatable. He's great. He's fantastic. He gets beat, you forget all about him. I remember the time, I'll give you an example, David Price. David Price was the next best thing. Tony Bellew said David Price was going to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. He was ready for the Klitschko's. He got turned over by Tony Thompson, right? Got turned over by Tony Thompson. Then he come back again for the rematch. He got turned up by Tony Thompson. Let's add this here. Start the QAs, right? Come up with the Tony Thompson fight. Had the rematch. Brought Lennox Lewis in. Got battered again. I'm going to watch those fights. Got battered again. Then he bring Lennox Lewis in. Then he brought Tommy Brooks in. Got battered again. Brought Tommy Brooks in. got battered again by Christian Hammer. I think he had Coldwell in his corner. Do you understand? Hype, hype, hype. But you could see a Price had problems. My point is this. Here's another state of boxing today, right? Let me throw this at you. When we're talking about boxing here, Talk Sport has become the, I won't call them the Bible of boxing, but particularly in the UK, they've become the pinnacle for media for boxing. They've become the magazine show of boxing, right? Talk Sport Boxing has become the magazine show of boxing in the UK. They are the ones with the information now. So before it used to be with Paul Dempsey and Jim Watt and who else was on it? Gary Norman and Gary Mason would sometimes step in the show. And back in the day, Ringside was a real good show. Johnny Nelson and Adam Smith. Glenn McCrory used to be in the show. That show was a really good show. Really good commentators talking real good boxing. It wasn't about the script of the promoters. Dion Duck was there on the comms. He was telling you as it was what was going on, and his commentary was amazing. He'd give you a better backstory about the fighter. So as the fighter's making their way to the ring, and he'll tell you what he's seen. He'll tell you the facts. And if he thought you were losing the fight, he'll tell you he's losing the fight. He's not going to go on the comms and say to you, yeah, he's up on my scorecard. When you're watching the fight and going, this guy's getting the living daylights beaten out of him. So, again, it's not about how we used to perceive boxing as a guy who used to box very well, or a guy's winning or losing. They'll tell you as it is. Talk Sport is there. And here's an example of this. When you want to check the quality of Talk Sports panel, right? The quality of Talk Sports panel. You've got Gareth A. Davis. Think what you want of him, yeah? You've got Gareth A. Davis. You've got Darren Bent, professional footballer. You've got Spencer, what's his name? The Omen, Spencer, right? Who else? Flipping. A couple other guys on there, right? A couple other geezers on there. They're not. Some of them come from the world of football, right? They've got this Talk Sport thing on. The one guy on there who makes sense, who actually isn't right behind Anthony Joshua, because he's obviously a Joshua guy, Joshua trains in the gym, is Duke McKenzie. Duke McKenzie, 3-weight world champion. How the hell does a 3-weight world champion play second fiddle to Gareth A. Davis? How the hell does that happen? On a big night of boxing, we should be hearing Duke McKenzie's opinion. 3-time world champion, or 3-weight world champion, one of the best Britain's produced, and talks solid boxing. I don't want to hear what Gareth A. Davis has got to say. I want to hear about boxing. I don't want to see Gareth A. Davis' face. For what? What do I want to see his face for? Right? I understand you've got to have presenters for a show, but let the people in the boxing talk and let them be. But you've got people like, what's his name? And I like him, Simon. I like Simon because he does try and. Simon is in this unique position of being on a big platform, right, and able to ask questions that are paid for media will not ask those questions. He will not. The paid for media will not ask certain questions. The paid for media mean I'm talking about those people, those YouTubers, for example, that will get free access to boxing events. Paid and bought for by the promoters, so therefore they will not ask certain questions of the promoter. They will not ask certain questions of the fighter, because if they do that, they will lose access. Again, the new world order of boxing. It probably was there before, but this is what it is now. So I've always said Duke McKenzie was an amazing analyst. But when you think about it, he's there. You've got an amazing analyst there, but you've got people like Gad do more talking, and Simon Jordan do more talking than Gad, than Duke McKenzie. Think about this. When you went back and you to the ringside show, right? You had Johnny Nelson, cruiserweight champion of the world. You had Glenn McCrory, cruiserweight champion of the world. You had Gary Mason, who was up and coming heavyweight. He got beat by Lennox Lewis. You got Frank Bruno, WBC heavyweight champion of the world. You had so many different quality fighters used to come on that show. I'm talking Nicky Piper. I think he was a world champion, but Nicky Piper. These guys talked straight boxing to you. I remember. Here's another example of how good Ringside was. Yeah, Ringside had Frank Bruno in the studio. I think after Frank Bruno got beat by Lennox Lewis, he was in the studio, and they had George Foreman as well at one point. He was in the studio, and Lennox Lewis had just beaten Phil Jackson, and as for they'd gone back to Bruno, and they said to Bruno, they said, what do you think of this fight? What do you think of Lennox's performance? He went, yeah, well, he's going to fight Oliver McCall next fight, and McCall's a bull. He takes a really good shot, and you can't be doing the stuff you're doing like against Oliver McCall. You can't do that. You can't box Oliver McCall like that. That's what Bruno said, yeah? George Foreman said Lennox Lewis, he says he's wind up the hands. He says, oh, no, you can't do that. He looks bad. He needs a real trainer. And George Foreman and Frank Bruno were speaking exactly into what happened Lennox's next fight. Foreman said he needed a new trainer. He needed a proper trainer, not a cheerleader. Next fight, Lennox Lewis got knocked out by Oliver McCall. And in his either autobiography, Lennox admitted that he took training into his own hands, and he was relying on what John Davenport, his amateur trainer, had taught him to get for his professional career. So Lennox was cutting corners, and the corners eventually caught up with him, and that's how you got Emmanuel Stewart joined with Lennox Lewis, or Lennox Lewis joined with Emmanuel Stewart. Emmanuel Stewart was always wanted Lennox Lewis as his fighter. He just said it was unfortunate that it was just business. He had McCall employed him to knock Lennox Lewis out, and that's what happened. Quality stuff you're getting. But if that was today, Foreman probably wouldn't have said anything, and Bruno wouldn't have said anything. They wouldn't be allowed to say anything because you could butter up the heavyweight. So he's a great fighter. He's brilliant. He boxed fantastic there. He has hands down by his side. He's getting caught with big overhand rights, but it doesn't matter. He's a great fighter. He's got a good chin. He's going places. Olympic gold medalist. Unbeaten heavyweight. He's going to the stars. That's how they talk now. This is the new world order of boxing. Take it or leave it. That's what it is today. 50-50 fights. When you hear anybody saying 50-50 fights, what they're basically saying to you is, we have to say 50-50, or else we're not selling tickets for this fight. If you turn around and say, man, this guy's going to get absolutely destroyed, 70-30, those tickets ain't selling. Those tickets are not selling. That's why you get things like, oh yeah, Conor McGregor, I can see why Conor can win this fight. It's 50-50, because if Conor lands the left hand, Conor from UFC and MMA is going to land a left hand on Floyd Mayweather. And he's going to do better than all the other fighters that Mayweather's fought. Really? Got to make it 50-50. Got to make it look as if, you've got to get the Irish fans in, got to get all those UFC fans in, MMA fans in, MMA, UFC versus boxing. Yeah, you've got to do that. Sell the fight to make it look like McGregor's got half a chance when he never had no chance. And from them days, the road has been set for what we have today. This goes further in. When I talked about the WWE of boxing, and I talk about guys like this situation, Eubank versus Ben, right? The Sons. Adam Smith sat down in TalkSport Studios and he said this line: the first script was amazing because obviously Eubank had issues with his dad and Eubank had issues with Ben because obviously Ben failed the drugs test. So your fathers obviously had issues with one another, makes for a compelling fight. So now that script has run. What's the script now for the second fight? Because clearly the second fight can't be as good as the first fight because we know the script and we know how the script ended with Eubank winning. That's what Adam Smith said live on TalkSport about scripted fights. Bella Hopkins once said, I didn't lose to Jermaine Taylor, I lost to Emmanuel Stewart. Yeah. So that's true, he did say that. So that's another example of the world of boxing or new world order of boxing. Now let's go back to this legacy thing now. So, how is it that a man like Gervonta Davis, who is recognized as one of the best fighters in the world, one of the most exciting punchers in the world, and one of the faces of boxing, Gervonta Davis, has not fought a career-defining fight? Yeah, and he's a current world champion. He's not on the decline. He's not like past his best. How is it possible that Gervonta Davis is going to make his biggest amount of money and his career-defining fight against Jake Paul, a guy who fights at cruiserweight and heavyweight, and Gervonta Davis fights at lightweight? A current world champion. How is this fight acceptable? And can I ask the question, if this fight goes ahead, does Gervonta Davis, should he lose, does that make Jake Paul the lightweight champion of the world? Because he said he'd fight for a world title, right? And Gervonta Davis is a world champion, right? So in Jake Paul's world, he's having a world title fight. This is in Jake Paul's world. Now think about it for a second. This guy was quite happily talking about getting in the ring with Anthony Joshua. And the first thing I thought is that Joshua was going to lose this fight. And people go, why do you think Joshua will lose this fight? Because we're in a new world of boxing where the old Bunsen burner, as Froch would say, your money talks and you fall over. Scripted? Yeah, because everyone will say that Jake Paul should not beat Anthony Joshua. Right? We're in a world where legacy no longer matters. Nobody cares if you're 2 division or 2 weight or 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. Your name and what you've achieved is what we need to sell this pay-per-view. We don't give a crap about your health or you. We just care that you're in the ring, bums on seats, and we recoup our money. That is it. Business. Are you willing to sell your soul for this amount of money and all the hard work you've put in for one night of carnage? Are you ready for that? If you're ready for that, there you go. And this is the new world of boxing, which I'm talking about. How else could you get Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul? after Gervonta said all the stuff he said about Turkey Al Sheikh, I'm not signing for him, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, blah 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 blah. He said, oh, it's like signing with the devil, blah 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 blah. And then suddenly, just suddenly, this guy is on his way to prison. And before we know it, he's suddenly out of prison and now fighting Jake Paul. Could it be potentially that, hey, guess what? You've come out of prison. You know how you got out of prison? You could stay tweak. I could put you behind bars for 20 years of your life, or you can just take this fight against Jake Paul, and you can walk free and fight Jake Paul in this fight. Money talks. Is it possible? Could it happen? Yeah, it could happen. I'll pay. I'll pay to keep you out of prison. I'll keep you out of prison. But now I own you. So you will fight where I want you to, when I want you to, how I want you to. Oh, and let's not forget about that lifetime contract with AJ. Let's go back to that. I remember when I talked to Uncle Bashir, he said it's a slave contract. Because basically, they own you. They'll tell you when to fight and when not to fight and who to fight. So when AJ says he's retired, and then suddenly he's, well, I've retired, and then the next minute Hearn is saying, oh, he will fight in 2026. Wait, well, hold on. I thought the dude said he's retired. The dude clearly looks like he doesn't want to box again. And it looks like you're just trying to kind of like ease your way out your contract by not fighting. And these guys are not fighting. You say you've got an injury. Is it an injury? Is it truly an injury? Or is it the fact you're just trying to wait out your contract so you have less fights to have? Why do I say this? Because we go back into the past. We go back into a point where Andre Ward had a contract, a dodgy, either a contract or a messy contract. And what he had to do is wait out his time for his contract to end. Now, there are some contracts in the world of boxing which mean that if you're contracted to a certain promoter, then you can't fight anywhere else on any other fights apart from fights that you're promoted by that promoter. So if you see sometimes fighters not boxing for a long time and it's not been a ban or a silent ban, then the other thing would be is because the promoter's got them locked into a contract. The boxer doesn't want to fight for that promoter anymore. Either it's because they didn't get paid or somewhere along the line there's been a disagreement. So I flip you. If you don't want to pay me the money I'm worth, or you've broken this contract, or listen, the contract said we are going to have these 3 fights, and there was no way I was going to fight. I was never going to fight King Kong. Part of your contract is to make me avoid fighting King Kong. You've broken your contract because you're telling me in my second fight I'm fighting King Kong. We didn't plan that. In the first 3 fights, I was meant to fight tune-up fights or step-up fights, but in my second fight, you want me fighting King Kong. You're talking about me fighting King Kong. And then you tell me this is a fight that's going to turn your career around, or it's going to accelerate your career if you take the King Kong fight. But wait, I didn't agree to fight King Kong. You know I didn't agree to fight King Kong. That wasn't part of the agreement I signed when I walked in here. So this stuff like this, then to fight, it has to not fight. You don't see a fighter fighting for a while. Why is that guy not fighting? Why haven't we seen him recently? Contractual issues, and they can't speak about it. NDA, isn't it? Non-disclosure agreement basically means can't talk about it. So yeah, so we've got this situation going on with Gervonta Davis and Tank, and Jake Paul. Sorry, the next fight, they're 3 freak fights, completely freaky fights. You got a guy who's a cruiserweight fighting a guy that's a career lightweight. How many weight divisions is that? Manny Pacquiao climbed 8 divisions. Then you've got the next freak fight is, for me, Fundora, and Thurman, Keith Thurman. Right, this guy's like 6'6". Keith Thurman's like 5 foot what 8, 5'9". They look two completely different. The burning, towering inferno. They look at two completely different weight categories. You just look at the pair of them. One looks like he should be a basketballer. But Fundora's decent, man. He's a good boxer, good boxing skills. My thoughts on the fight is that Keith has always been a brilliant talker, but he's 36 now. Can he do at 36 what he could do at 26? I don't think he can. And Keith's punches are always quite wide. Fundora's punches are pretty straight. So the punches that are straight are more likely going to do more damage than those that come round the corner. Keith's kind of guy is going to jump to one side, jump to the other, and throw punches. I don't know if his body can go 12 rounds. We don't know if Buddy can go 12 rounds again in a tough fight. The one thing he doesn't have to worry about in this fight is Fundora probably won't go to Keith's body. But Keith's got plenty of body to hit. If Fundora is stronger than Keith Thurman is predicting, like if Fundora is really strong at light middleweight, he's like a light middleweight, he should be a middleweight. Will the strength tell? Will he be able to keep Keith off the jab? Is Keith going to be able to have enough? Because he's had a lot of injuries. Is Keith going to be able to get inside and do damage? You do that against flipping Jarvis. Him and Jarvis are about the same height. Doesn't matter. But against a guy like Fundora, who's got inches on Keith and long arms, and who's Keith going to use for sparring? Is he going to get basketballers to spar against him? So it's going to be a really interesting fight, Keith Thurman versus Fundora. And when you're at that age, which Keith is, there's always liability you can get cut in a fight. And Fundora has the power to hurt Keith Thurman. He's got the power to hurt him. And I like Keith throwing all these wild punches. Different subject. Why do boxers' legs go so dramatically as they're aging? Saw recent footage of Holyfield. Well, some of the reasons can be that when they were in the peak of their careers, or they were good in careers, they did a lot of running. And as they've got older, they've done less running because of their knees. The damage over the years, running. So that could be one of the issues. So they can't run as they used to on their feet. And the knees give out. So you try to do everything you can to not stress that body out the same way. So that's one way the legs will go, because they're not doing the same strength training in the legs. Possibly. Sure, possibly. Freak show number one. So Keith may in his mind may say, this is what I've got to do to beat Fundora. This is what I've got to do to beat Fundora. Can his body do what his mind is saying? Is Keith Thurman writing checks that his body can't cash? I don't know. I really don't know. I know Fundora's young, he's strong, he's hungry. So we'll see. So that's a freak show, and it is in terms of the height and not in the quality of the fight, but in terms of just physically watching. It's a freak show. Another freak show that's come out: Mayweather versus Tyson. I'll watch it just for the complete freakiness of it and the weirdness of it, of seeing Mike fighting a welterweight fighting a heavyweight. Mike has always more or less been a heavyweight, and I think Floyd was trying at super feather at one point. You wouldn't see it because it's so crazy. But the fact that Mike and Floyd are going to fight in an exhibition bout, is Mike going to be able to throw the punches that he couldn't throw against Jake Paul? Is Floyd going to give him the Jake Paul deal? I don't know, because the two guys don't actually like one another. There's been some issues there. So, and if that's the first straightener, are we going to get Roy Jones versus Floyd? Because that's the one everyone will see. Floyd versus. It would have made more sense for Roy to fight Floyd first, and then fight Mike Tyson afterwards. But again, freak show. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. I mean, for me, Mike is great. Mike can only fight one way, which is just to go forward. Mike can't fight off a back foot. But I don't, I see how Floyd puts Mike on the back foot. But Floyd can sting Mike. He can sting with shots and get out of the way. Sting with shots and get out of the way. But I can tell you firsthand that if Floyd decides to get in a clinch with Mike Tyson, he's finished. So Floyd just has to use his feet and move. You just move. You just keep moving Mike around. Mike has never fought anybody that's going to have the footwork and the hand speed and the movement and the magic that Floyd will have. Just won't. Floyd Floyd should befuddle Mike because of the speed and the movement. It's almost going to be like Mike Tyson's punch out. The thing is, it's just that two things: can Floyd hit Mike hard enough to keep him off in one, and two, if Mike can land on Floyd, which I don't think he can, but if he did land on Floyd, will he be able to land cleanly on Floyd? Because Floyd will move and shift. When Floyd's on them ropes, the only time I think Mike can be successful is if Floyd's on them ropes. If Floyd ain't on them ropes and Mike's legs have gone, Floyd will just bounce around Mike and he will expose Mike because his legs have gone. He'll expose Mike. It's a bad fight for Mike to have because of the movement of Floyd. The only issue that Floyd will have is if Mike is able to catch him on them ropes. But if Mike can't catch him on the ropes, he ain't catching no Floyd Mayweather. So that's another freak show out the window. Yeah, if he lands a low blow, yeah. Or he bites Floyd. So that's a freak show. So the other night, BKB boxing. In fact, I'll tell you a little story about BKB. Actually, at one point I was going to get involved with BK boxing, not as a fighter, but I was going to get involved doing a lot of media work with them. I knew their promoter Feldman years ago, before when BKB first started out. Literally, like first days of it starting out, I was going to cover some fights for them, do some media work with them, but I turned it down in the end. As a boxing man, I couldn't pull myself around to get around to that, and I didn't like at the time how it looked. They've cleaned it up somewhat now. It looks a lot better than it did. It was pretty unprofessional back then, but it looks more professional now, which is good. But I don't regret it. It's a very disturbing thing where you've got guys like Frankie Gavin, who did well at the Olympics, I think it's British Commonwealth, your British European champion, getting knocked out in a round by a guy I've never heard of in my life. Yeah, it's embarrassing. And when I was listening to Frankie Gavin talk, I was thinking to myself, this guy was one of the up and coming fighters, one of the top fighters out of Frank Warren's stable. I remember Frankie Gavin. Now how far have we fallen to what you're going BKB fighting BKB against a guy I've never heard of and getting knocked out by a punch like just horrible to see it. Horrible to see it. But then I went back and listened to the way Frankie Gavin was talking. I don't know if Frankie Gavin had a trainer or he was training himself. I think, oh, well, I used to be a pro fighter, so I can just go in and do that. And that's just worrying to see Frankie Gavin get knocked out like that. Is he broke? I don't know. But why would you? So then, which leads us into my next conversations about James DeGale. I think myself, James DeGale is going to come in and fight now. So I want to come back and I want to, I want to right the wrong. Well, bro, you didn't start your career as a BKB fighter. Why would you go into BKB, risk yourself potentially getting knocked out? For what? If I wanted to have the fight against Matty, I would have fought Matty in a boxing ring and so, listen, you go in the boxing ring or boxing ring, not BKB. It's nonsense. That's like, for example, I was a I was a Formula One driver, world champion Formula One driver. Excellent, right? I've retired for a number of years. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go down to um, my local go kart, and I'm gonna go do some go karting because I'm curious. I've never done go karting before. I've always wanted to do it, so I'm gonna do some go karting and drive around go karting, right? Well, if I do well, I'm gonna do in a go karting championship, and if I do well there, I prepare me for the boxing ring. No, no, bro. If you want to prepare for the boxing ring, the best preparation is to actually get back in the boxing ring. What the hell are you doing BKB for? Oh, you're gonna get paid well for it, mate. You're gonna get paid. That might be your one and only payday, mate. Because BKB is not boxing. It's brutal. It's a different kind of. It's a different animal. I can see that. And then, like James DeGale, I was really happy to see him again on Talk Sport. But when my man started talking, no disrespect, when he started talking, I was thinking to myself, bro, are you slurring your words? Are you slurring your words? Because if you are, then there's two questions I'm going to ask you. Are you slurring your words because the punches to your head? Or are you slurring your words because you've got something up your nose? Either way, it's disturbing. It's disturbing. I'm listening to James talk. I'm like, you never used to talk like that. You never used to talk like that. In fact, when I saw you, was the interview you were doing with George Groves on the podcast, you didn't sound like that. That wasn't too long ago. Why are you sounding like that now? I'm like, I don't, and it fidgety, and I know James Gale was one of them guys that were very high energy, but I'm looking at him going, bro, and I'm listening to him talk, and I'm like, okay, all right, you still don't, something seems off about you, and I don't know what it is. You just seem just completely something off about James Gale, and then he's talking, and he says, oh yeah, I'm in good shape, man. I feel like I'm, and that's the whole normal stuff they normally say because they're promoting fighting, they promote themselves. But then he said something that made me think, really? Oh yeah, I've been training myself. Oh no. The famous I've been training myself. How many fighters do I know that have gone in the ring after making a comeback who trained themselves to go into world title fights? I'm like, why would you train yourself to go into a world title fight? What is it that makes you think that you could be trainer and fighter? I'm like, what are you doing? If you're going in from a boxing world, you've been boxed for some years, and you're going to come back into BKB, and you're going to come into a new sport, and you're not going to get a trainer. That's another guy's going to get punched up as well. For what? Why? Get paid some money. Unless now you ain't got the money to pay for a trainer. This stuff is absolute nonsense. I'm sorry. James DeGale could get himself punched up whenever he is. He could end up getting punched up. Because the last time he was in the ring, got punched up by a Eubank. Yeah? And I can't imagine being any better now. He says, oh, I had injuries and this and that. The women, the partying. Okay, fine. But you don't look right, bro. You just... And they say a reflection of how a person is the inside out, not the outside in. I don't know. And again, legacy. James DeGale, two-time champion of the world championships, Olympic gold medalist, top fight. He was one of the best. He was the best in the world at one point. I mean, I knew he was going to lose to Truex. I knew he was going to lose to Truex to his boxing, but I used to love James DeGale. His fight against Badou Jack was a good fight as well, but this is where I talk about legacy versus name and putting bums on seats. Entertainment. If you can entertain us, then great. And we use your name to entertain and put bums on seats, great. But we don't care about you or your health. We don't. We don't care. Foreman I'm not even sure, but there used to be a line, the exception that proves the rule. Yeah, you're right. So, yeah, I was watching James DeGale. I just felt so sad when these fighters have to come back. And what are you coming back for? That turkey money. It's the turkey money you're coming back for. Not just any boxing, the turkey money you're coming back for. So you're quite willing, you fighters, to come back and not train professionally, cut corners, and then get paid well. The new world order of boxing. I feel that if boxers could get the gab jobs, they would not have to risk death for cash. Well, you know what? I must say this here, and and I say this with all sincerity, right? It's when one of these guys come back and get seriously hurt, that's then we're gonna start thinking about looking after the health of a fighter before they look after their money. Do we understand? Because I think that when the money comes before their health, the money comes before the integrity. If those things are not being considered, then there's a problem. There's a big problem. And what will happen is somebody gets seriously injured. Questions will be asked. How did this guy get in the ring to do this? Well, you endorsed it, didn't you? You allowed it to happen, right? You promoted this, right? You were consensual to this, right? Yeah, he's a grown man. He knows yeah, he's a grown man, but needs that money, man. Needs that money. I don't understand why these fighters don't become trainers, or start managing fighters, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I feel sorry for some of them. I feel sorry for, but I think that some of them were advised what to do, and they didn't listen because at the time their heads were so gassed. Now the money runs out. They're like, right, I need some of that money again, so I need to go back and box. So you hear them all coming back. I think Kell Brook's got a deal coming up with BKB as well. So I said, legacies get paid. And mine a legacy. So listen, back in the day, if Kell Brook got knocked out by Bill Hubbard, you're like, who the hell is Bill Hubbard? And he had a record of 20 fights and 19 losses. You say Bill Hubbard's a bum, right? Well, that bum, which you're calling today, that you were calling yesterday a bum, is the same guys are going to be punching up our former top pound for pound, uh, legendary, great world champions and former world champions. Why? Because if the script says, and Bill Hubbard brings in more money than you gotta go. One way or another. You gotta go. We'll pay you handsomely, you gotta go. And on the closing and all of this new world of boxing, apparently, apparently, in Canelo's last fight, he fought William Skull, right? So apparently, Turkey told William Skull, take it easy on Canelo. Because obviously, Canelo had a fight coming up against Crawford. Didn't want to mess that up. The new world order of boxing is here. It don't matter about your legacy. It don't matter about what you did. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. It doesn't even matter if you're a world champion today. This is the new world order of boxing. It doesn't matter if a person can fight or they can't fight. As long as we can sell you a narrative that he's a great fighter, he's legendary, he's this and that, people will be legendary and they haven't done and achieved anything in boxing. So it just shows you that you don't have to be a Olympic champion or a world champion, because Jake Paul's not Olympic champion or world champion. How many Olympic and world champions have we got that are on Netflix in boxing? Has Pacquiao got a Netflix deal? Okay. Who else Netflix deal? So now the Canelo fight is with Crawford. But Netflix has started with Jake Paul, right? Jack Catterall's going to Bomac. Yeah, cool. I think Jack Catterall knows Bomac. Well, yeah, good for him. On a final subject of changing trainers, um, I think that sometimes a change is as good as a rest, but what, in my opinion, the fighter needs to understand is: do you take accountability for your own actions? Do you take accountability for not sticking to the game plan? Do you take accountability for not following through the game plan? Do you take responsibility for being honest about the game plan? Do you take accountability for these things? Because if you don't, then there's no point going to another trainer, because you're going to do the same shit again. You understand? So it's whether you're accountable or not. Yeah. So those are my thoughts. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section. And please do check out the link, the GoFundMe link. I am working very hard now to establish a school of sport for our young people in Africa. Really want to do it. Really want to push it. Really want to. But check out the videos. Check out the GoFundMe, and you can get to know more about the backstory. Would really love your support on it. Even if you can't contribute, share the link. Share it on your pages. Let's get more people involved in this. Right. Thank you so much. This has been BWTM Sports Gaming, and we're out. Real chat from real people. Have a good night.